Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Angles, and this one was a special one for me. I got the opportunity to sit down with Mitch Korn, aka the goalie guru, the infamous and Hall of Fame, I believe Hall of Fame worthy, and I think most people do as well, goalie coach behind people like Dominik Hasek, Pekka Rinne, Braden Holtby. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We're talking about a Stanley Cup, multiple Vezinas, multiple Hart trophies, and that's just the beginning. We got into everything about his early years with the Buffalo Sabres, getting involved with Dominik Hasek, what that was like here in Buffalo, kind of how his career possessed, and all the other things that he's proud of, like building Mitch Korn Goalie Camp and kind of his relationships he's made throughout the years. I mean, whether or not you're into hockey or into goaltending, it's an inside look into a really high level professional who's gotten to the top of his game and who's arguably by most the best that there ever was. So enjoy this. And it's again personal to me, as I've known him since about 9 years old, but I think you're going to love it whether you're into hockey or not. And you're especially going to love it if you're a Buffalo Sabres and even more so a Dominik Hasek fan. So enjoy it and let us know what you think as always. Finally, as you know, this is brought to you by Richmond Bona Personal Injury Attorneys. Can't do this without our firm, so hats off to everybody at the firm. Thanks so much. So do you want to do the podcast, or you just want to text on your phone the whole time?
Well, it's the assistant general manager, so can I answer it?
Yeah, you can answer it.
Thanks.
What's up?
How are you, John Richmond? It's great to see you. I'm excited to see you and about tonight. This will be fun.
What's going on tonight?
We are going to the premiere of the Dominik Hasek movie.
Have you ever met Dominik?
Once or twice, yeah.
So, yeah, like I'm really excited to do this. It kind of all came together, right, the last minute. Pretty excited to have this opportunity. Never really gotten to sit down with you in this type of setting. And I figured I just want to kick it off and say, okay, look, we got an NHL career that spans many years. That includes 3 Jennings trophies, 2 Pearson's Lindsays, 1 Masterton, 5 Vezinas, 2 Harts, a Stanley Cup, countless other goalies you've coached who have been nominated for awards or have won after you had left coaching them. And the NHL journey began in Buffalo. And I would love to just kind of hear, like, how did this journey begin?
Well, first off, I pinch myself every day. I can't believe that this has happened. I don't belong in this setting. I should be somebody's accountant. I shouldn't be somebody's, goalie coach. But it really all began way back when I was working at Miami University, and there was a guy named John Mickler, not to be confused with the John Muckler that worked for the Sabres. And John was the coaching director for New York State. And I spoke at a Can-Am coaches clinic. Actually, it was in the 70s before I got to Miami. I was at Kent State as a student. And I went and spoke at a coach's clinic in Katona, New York, at the Harvey School, now that I remember it. And John was there, and he said, you know what? I want to run a goalie camp. I'm going to bring you to Buffalo. And we did the first weekend Buffalo goalie camp in Tonawanda. And back then, there was a guy I was playing hockey with at Kent State by the name of Billy Kahn. He lived in Kenmore. And another guy that became our friend that lived in Euclid, Ohio. And the 3 of us came up and did the first goalie camp I ever did on a weekend. And that's how it started. And then when John Mickler was hired by the Buffalo Sabres as the director of amateur hockey development, he said, I want to do a week-long goalie camp. I want to do 2 of them, actually. And they set it up under the umbrella of the Buffalo Sabres Hockey School, which you may remember when you were young, that existed for quite a long time. And I came in and did that goalie camp. And it was that goalie camp that gave me the opportunity to interact with the Sabres. Craig Ramsey, who was assistant general manager at the time. And we were doing a classroom in the old Sabre practice locker room upstairs at what was then Saberland, now Hockey Outlet. And I was showing a video that I had put together of college clips for the kids. And all the kids are sitting in the lockers, the lights are off, some of them are on the floor. And Rick Dudley, who was the coach of the Sabres then, it was the summer of 1990. So it was a long time that I had done these weekends. I met up with John Mickler. Then in 1990, I'm doing this camp, and Rick Dudley came in and sat down in one of those lockers. And he later told me that he was watching going, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I want to hire this guy. He watched what we did on the ice, and obviously that was unique. And it took a full year for me to get a phone call from Craig Ramsey asking me if I was interested in coaching the National Hockey League. That's truly how the whole thing began.
So when you think back about it, what was it about what he was seeing you do that was unique for that time that he hadn't seen, say, other goalie coaches do?
There weren't many other goalie coaches.
Okay.
I actually replaced a guy named Doug Favell. Doug Favell played National Hockey League for the Flyers, and Doug Favell would come in now and again. This is what they tell me. Clint Malarchuk told me, John Van Boxmeer told me. Doug would come in, and it was, when I played, son, when I played. And that's how they coached. And they didn't really coach. It was somebody for the goalie to talk to.
Yeah.
You know, it's a unique position. It's a mentally straining position. And it wasn't a technical position back then. It was an instinctual position totally. And it just was way different. There were really hardly any goalie coaches. They might have been goalie advisors, but not really goalie coaches. And so I was one of the first ones that became quote unquote full time.
So at that time, you know, when Dudley's sitting in the back of the room watching you, you don't know he's there. At that time, when you think back, would you have considered yourself a goalie coach, or did you still kind of think like, I don't even know if that's a real position, I'm just helping, advising? How did you look at it back then?
Well, I was a goalie coach because I was at Miami of Ohio at that point. I was coaching the goalies for the varsity team. I was an administrator and building the programs and the summer camps in the ice arena. And I had become friendly with Ted Sater. And years before that, when Ted Sater was coaching in Buffalo, I actually sent him a letter saying, you need a goalie coach, because they didn't really have one or didn't have much. And you need a goalie coach, and here's what I can do for you. And I got a form letter back from my friend, Ted Sater, right? But that was fine.
Yeah.
So, I had the opportunity to blaze my own trail because there were very few people. Maybe Francois Allaire, who was in Montreal before I got to Buffalo, was maybe one of the only guys that was actively involved doing this thing and turning it from an instinctual position into science.
All right. I'm definitely going to get into that with you. But going back to, they reach out to you a year later after they watched you in the classroom. Did you hesitate at all? Did you have any of this feeling of like, I asked for this, but like, wow, it's now a real thing. Like, can I actually do this? Like, were you nervous at all?
Well, there's a commercial that we've all seen on TV that says, never let them see you sweat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was my mantra because I was in way over my head. I didn't know anything about pro hockey. I didn't know how teams travel. I didn't know how teams lived. I didn't have any idea. And so I had to fake it. I literally did fake it for quite some time at the beginning. But I also knew I was nervous because I didn't want to give up my day job. Mm-hmm. Because at this point, Ashley was 2.5 years old. She's 38 now. I have a wife in Vicky. I have a child in Ashley. And Vicky's working at Miami University. I'm working at Miami University. You could be there forever. You got a state pension. It's pretty secure. And it was hockey, and it was cool. And so I was able to manipulate or orchestrate with the help of Steve Cady, who was my boss, because he didn't want me to go. I got a 9-month leave of absence. So I came up here for 9 months, still had a job waiting for me, hired a guy to replace me, which literally I did my old job by phone and we didn't have cell phones, by the way, by landline phones, helping this guy do what my job was, and knew that in 9 months I was going to come back.
Yeah.
So I had little risk. Vicky managed things. It wasn't always easy, but she managed things, did her thing, and Ashley was young, and we had a good support network of sorority girls and synchronized skaters, and they all took care of Ashley. She was a pass-around pack, and it worked out great. And so I did it without really having risk.
Sure. So now take yourself to like maybe your first day in Buffalo. Was Grant Fuhr the starting goaltender at that
Grant
time?
Fuhr, we hadn't traded for Grant Fuhr yet.
Okay, so
the
talk about the
goalies
first
here
time.
Were Clint Malarchuk,
Okay.
and Darren Pupa.
Yep.
And Tom Draper ended up being signed as a minor league goalie, but he surfaced during the year and ended up actually playing in the playoffs that year.
Yep. Was this 91?
91. The 91-92 season was my first year.
Yeah.
So I remember, and this is a funny story, but so I show up in Buffalo. The good news is I've got a really good friend in this town. His name was Chris Hicks, his wife Evelyn. So I made an arrangement with them. I lived with them. They had a room in their house. I didn't have to get an apartment. I didn't have to do anything. I'm now living with friends of mine. It made it fun. We had a great blast together. He loved hockey. He coached hockey. We were all in the same boat in terms of our love for the game and how much we watched on TV and everything that we did. So that would have been one of the first tough obstacles. It was seamless. I had a place to live, closet, worked out perfect, fine. So I show up in Buffalo, and then I go to Saberland because the guys are doing captain's practices. So they had just gotten off the ice, and there was a little room under the upstairs. You might remember that room yourself.
Yeah.
Little room there. And I walk in there, and Dale Howardchuk, rest his soul, Rick Vive, Clint Malarchuk are in that room. And I went in to meet Clint Malarchuk, right? And so I introduced myself to Clint. Clint was very nice. Rick Vive spoke for the group. Rick Vive, I could still see what he said now. He said, with all due respect, so you know something's coming, right?
Yeah.
With all due respect, I've never heard of you. I don't know your name. I've never seen any of your work. What makes you capable of coaching in the National Hockey League? And I knew I was going to get that question, and then I had the answer already in my head. Something to the effect of, while everybody was playing, I spent the last 10 years at a Division I university. And Clint Malarchuk says, 10 years in college, you must not be very bright. That's when we hit it off, and we're still friends today.
That's awesome.
And Clint has a pretty unique history, too. He's had, 9 lives like a cat. That could be a topic for another day, but Clint is a really unique guy who's now the poster child for OCD.
Yeah.
And OCD is very prevalent in our goalie industry. And he's been a lot of help to me in the last 35 years with guys that I've suspected had some of it and could use help with it.
Out of curiosity, not to take us off track, but it kind of speaks a little bit to the psyche of a goalie or the type of person who makes it to a high level as a goalie, and there's no one better than you to comment on this, is, we hear like all these stories about goalies being super weird or having all these weird mannerisms or superstitions. What are your thoughts about that? Is there a reason for it? Is it just like the position selects the person or the person selects the position and they kind of like develop these habits to help them cope with like the pressure? What are your thoughts on that?
First off, goalies are way more normal now, honest to goodness, than all the stories that we used to hear back in the day. Way more normal. But it is a unique position with unique stresses. And even though you're part of a team, in a lot of ways, you're on an island by yourself. And no matter how hard or how much I can train and advise a guy. When he steps onto the ice for a game, I can't help him. There's no, it's not like a quarterback where he's got communication in his headgear being talked to by the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I can't talk to him. And that's why, but at face-offs or at TV timeouts, that's where your backup goalie becomes a really important part of the puzzle, because you watch goalies, they often go over and talk to their partner. Mm-hmm. And I used to go in between periods and talk to goalies, and really for like 20 years now, I don't. I leave them alone. He talks, the goalie would talk maybe with the goalie partner, and they sit next to each other in most cases, but I normally leave them alone. And the reason is pretty simple. You have to learn to manage your own game. You will never survive in this game. You will never grow to the heights you need to, because you have to learn to manage your own game in times of despair. Mm-hmm. I can't help you. And that's why I leave them alone.
Yeah. Because
they have to learn to regroup between periods, get themselves ready to go back out there, and they don't need to hear from me till it's over.
Sure. That makes sense. So going back to when you started in Buffalo, because we have to touch on this because of the reason you're here. Tell me about when you guys got Dominik Hasek and your thoughts before he arrived, when he arrives, and maybe walk us through what it was like, playing such a huge role with him and all the success you guys had.
There's a lot of Dominik Hasek stories.
I'm sure.
I remember the first time I met Dominik Hasek. Take two. I remember one of the first times I had a conversation or saw Dom other than on the ice. I'm walking through the locker room, and Dom is in a white tank top, and he's so skinny and narrow. He's 165 pounds, with a pair of tighty-whities on, black knee-high socks, and he put his dress shoes on because you didn't really want to walk on that floor. Yeah. That is an image I can't get out of my head. And I joke about it, but that's one of my first images that I saw from Dom. I remember when we went to lunch for the very first time, and we were talking about who your favorite goalie was. And he didn't know much about North America, but he played with Eddie Belfour, so he was his favorite. And I told him at that point, my favorite goalie, because I grew up a Ranger fan, was Mike Richter, mm-hmm. who was doing unbelievable at that point with the New York Rangers. Fast forward, maybe a year and a half or 2 years later, we're battling for first place. So are the Rangers. Dom is near the top of the NHL. So's Mike Richter. And we're going into New York for the first time. And it was going to be on national television, whatever the national TV was. And we get to the rink, and there was no morning skate because the circus was in town. It was an afternoon circus, then our game at night. And Dom looks at me out of nowhere. He goes, "I'm playing against your favorite goalie tonight." And I said, "That was 2 years ago. You remember that?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, now you're my favorite goalie." So we had a laugh about that. So those are two stories that I remember. But Dom was very unique. So when we traded for Dom at the draft, and that was kind of a unique trade as well, it was a three-way deal. And in essence, we traded Christian Ruutu for Dominik Hasek. But it'll never go down in the record books that way. Before the draft, to protect a guy from the expansion draft that was coming, Winnipeg traded Stefan Beauregard to the Buffalo Sabres for future considerations. Then the draft happens, and then it was a three-way deal. So we trade Stefan Beauregard. I don't remember exactly how it worked. Mm-hmm. When it ended, Stefan Beauregard was back in Winnipeg, which we can't trade him back to Winnipeg. That's against the rules. You needed an intermediary. Yep. So Christian Ruutu ended up in Chicago. Dominik Hasek ended up in Buffalo. And Stefan Beauregard ended up back in Winnipeg. So that's how we got him. So very first game that season, if I can remember correctly, we got spanked 6 or 7-3. And it was not a great debut for Dom. And there was a lot that Dom needed to learn. He had great skill and no order. And if people ask me, the thing that I said, I didn't teach him a lot. I just tried to give him order. I tried to classify his stuff into order. And then put the pieces of things together. He had an unbelievable mind. He knew what was going to happen next. But he was like a guy who was playing poker and he'd show his hand to the other NHL players because he knew what was going to happen and he was too early. He would react too early. He didn't have the patience to wait and outsmart the guy. Mm-hmm. So he didn't get off to a good start. And then shortly after the start of that year, which is 92, 93, he strained or tore stomach muscles. Dom was out 6 to 8 weeks. Tom Draper came up for a while. Darren Pooper was still there. That's when the Grand Fuhrer trade occurred. John Muckler had replaced Rick Dudley. The guy that hired me got fired in December of my first year. Okay? That put me in a bit of a spin cycle, right? But I got along with John Muckler great. We stayed in touch until the day he died. So we had a good relationship, and I'm forever thankful for him, and certainly Rick Dudley. And the guy who had to sign the paperwork was Jerry Meehan, who was the general manager at the time when I got hired. And so Muckler was from Edmonton, loved Grant Fuhrer. Yeah. Now, Grant was in Toronto, and Grant had kind of let himself go in terms of his knees weren't great, his shoulders weren't great, and his waistline wasn't great. He was heavy. And but John Muckler made that deal to bring Grant Fuhrer in because he felt he was the solution. And Darren Pooper went to Toronto. Dave Andrechuk went to Toronto in that trade. And I don't know what else. There's draft choices involved in that too. And that's how I met Grant Fuhrer.
Oh. So eventually Dom becomes Dom and,
yes.
And takes over. What ultimately do you think at the end of the day made him Dom? Like how did he ascend so highly or so high and so quick? Like what was it?
Well, let's talk about how he ascended.
Yeah.
You know, it's timing is everything. And we play the most random position in sport. A puck could get shot and hit a skate and go in 100 different directions. Mm-hmm. A ground ball bounces. The only thing random in football for me is the way the football bounces. Baseball is pretty consistent, right? Hits the wall, bounds this way. Ground balls, everything's the field's manicured. It's great. We play a really random game. Hits the post and goes in. Hits the post and goes out. It's really random. So I can still remember this as vivid as it was yesterday. It's Thanksgiving of 1993, the second year that Hasek was in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And Grant Fuhrer starts the year, and we start really slow. LaFontaine was hurt for a while. McGillney was hurt for a while. And Grant Fuhrer's knees were bad. We started like 7-10, 7-12. Excuse me. And I have to be in Oxford, Ohio, because by this time, by the way, I'm doing 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
I'm doing the Sabres, bopping in and out. I'm doing Miami, bopping in and out. Mm-hmm. My boss didn't want to lose me at Miami. That's Steve Cady. And so I'm doing 2 jobs. And everybody's happy with it. So I'm not with the team. I'm at home And I remember watching the game on TV. It was the Wednesday before U.S. Thanksgiving. And the Sabres are doing Canada. So it starts in Toronto. Felix Potvin's in the other net. Dom's in this net. Grandfier's on the shelf. They shut him down for 2 weeks. He's not doing a thing. They called up Tom Draper, that name I mentioned before, and he's backing up Dominik Hasek. And nobody knows what Dom's really got, right? So, first period, this is what I remember. Dom comes out, plays a puck, puts it right on Matt Sundin's stick. Wide open net, high and wide, shoots it high and wide. Thank goodness. Power play late in the first period, hits the crossbar, goes out instead of hitting the crossbar and going in. Maybe there's 30 seconds left in the first period. McGillney comes down the right wing, snaps one at the net. Felix Potvin misses it. 1-0 Buffalo. Sabres go on to win that game 2-0. 1-0 in an empty net goal, 2-0. And went on to win Canada. Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. So they came back with Toronto before that, winning 4 or 5 games. And that was Dominik Hasek's first Vezina year. And I often think if Sundin's shot goes in, it's 1-0. It hits the crossbar and goes in, it's 2-0. We don't score the first one. Maybe we do, but we never got a second one. And if we lost that game, maybe we had to open it up in the second or third period, and they get 3 breakaways, and now we lose 4-0. When we go to Edmonton for the next game, I think it was Edmonton, maybe Tom Draper plays.
Yep.
Maybe Dom doesn't play. Maybe Muckler makes another deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that's how fragile what we do is, how fragile playing goal is. And that's where it started, and that's where he took off. And that was the year of his first Vezina.
And obviously, you guys together, multiple Vezinas, Hart trophies for MVP, which is like so rare to see, especially multiple Hart trophies by a goalie. You eventually end up leaving Buffalo to go to Nashville with Barry Trotz. And I do want to talk about your relationship with Barry and kind of moving on from there. But just how would you kind of summarize your relationship with Dom, especially through all the success in Buffalo? And what was it like being in Buffalo in the 90s during that time? It's like, I think, an era of hockey that a lot of us, especially at my age or older, like we really kind of look fondly back on.
Well, it was still in the offensive era. Mm-hmm. LaFontaine had 150 points.
Yep.
Alexander McGillney had 76 goals. Football was pretty big here, too.
Yeah.
I lived through 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Now, the Bills didn't win any of them.
They didn't?
They went to, it's hard to believe, but they went to 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah, that's great.
Which was really cool to have been in the city throughout that whole thing also.
Yeah.
But it was a whole different era. We were still using wood sticks, man. Yeah. The hockey was so different. And it was, Dom had an amazing run here. He had a total of 6 Vezinas. I was with him for 4. 2 Hart trophies, a Jennings trophy. It was a great run. I pinched myself every day. He treated me great, and even when he went in the Hall of Fame, he made sure that I was invited and I went, and he has subsequently said very nice things about our experience together and what we did, so I have nothing but fond memories. We put an addition on my house in Oxford, Ohio, that Ashley referred to as the house that Dom built. And it made my career.
Yeah.
And everybody's got red letter days in their career, and that really made my career because every goalie that I talked to from that point forward, I had instant credibility regardless.
Yep.
I would have to lose the credibility. I started with the credibility.
Sure.
Which that wasn't the case when I started in Buffalo. And when I started in Buffalo, I had to earn that credibility.
Yeah. And yeah, it's amazing. Like, and obviously you did earn it, and that's followed you throughout your career. I mean, you've spent a lot of time with Barry Trotz, who I know you're very close with, and you guys embarked on this adventure in Nashville. I think you were there the first time for what, 14 years?
16.
16. And then you guys were together in Washington, where you won a Stanley Cup, and then the Islanders, and now you're back as their director of goaltending in Nashville with Barry again, who now is not a coach, is a GM.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your relationship with Barry and what those years have been like?
Yeah. People ask me all the time, what's the single most important thing when you're a goalie coach in the National Hockey League? And my response, find the right head coach. Because your head coach can do one of two things. He can help you build a mountain, or he can make it so tough for you that you spend all your time putting out fires.
Yeah.
And Barry got it. He understood it. He knew what we were doing. He understood a good goal from a bad goal. He understood that it's not my fault when it's a bad goal. Goalie coaches all around the National Hockey League, within their even little compound of the coach's room, have bullet holes all over their body from friendly fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you got to blame somebody.
Yeah.
And we're always blaming. We don't blame the goalie coach in public. We blame the goalie in private. The goalie coach in private.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Mm-hmm. Barry always got it. And you know, when we started together, so I can tell you the first two times I met Barry Trotz, and I remember them vividly. The first is I spoke at the old Roger Nielsen Coaches Clinic, and Barry was there, mm-hmm. and he introduced himself. And then in the American League, I would go to Rochester and work with the Amerks and the Amerks goalies, Steve Shields, Mike Bales, Marty Baron. And John Tortorella was the coach there for quite some time. And Torts and I are good buds. And Portland at the time was Washington's AHL team. Barry Trotz was coaching them. So I'm in Torts' office, and the coaches know each other. And they came in some afternoon, and they were going to skate. And then we were playing them the next day. And I reacquainted. Didn't really remember meeting Barry at the Roger Nielsen thing, but we met at that point. And Barry tells the story that he had decided when he got the Preds job that he wanted to hire me in Nashville. So you might remember back in the day, the San Jose Sharks had an AHL team that played in Kentucky. The Kentucky Thoroughblades. They played in Rupp Arena, where the basketball team played for the university. And you know, because you went to Miami University, that Rupp Arena was 2 hours from Oxford, Ohio.
Yeah.
The Rochester Americans in January of 1998 were playing in at Rupp Arena in Kentucky. Trotzy put two and two together, and he figured I'd be there because he knew I was at Miami. He knew I worked for the Sabres and Roch. He figured I'd be there. He went to scout. And that's where, without, what's the word? Without tampering.
Yeah, right.
Without tampering. We had a conversation.
Sure, yeah.
Now, recognize, and nobody really knows this, and I've never advertised this, but I worked for the Sabres for 7 years. I had 7 one-year contracts.
Oh, wow.
I worked for 4 head coaches, 3 general managers, and 4 club presidents. The Sabres have always been kind of volatile, and that era, it was very volatile. And the opportunity to go south instead of north for me, to get my first 3-year contract was...
I feel like you can breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but, you talk about breathing. I never worried about it.
Yeah.
And the reason is, I never coached scared. And the reason I never coached scared is because I never gave up my day job.
Right. Yes.
My boss is at Miami University, and you were there for some of that. Let me do both jobs. I'm fortunate enough that I'm a good enough administrator that I could do in 1 hour what took some people 1 day to do. And I knew what I was doing there, and we built that intramural program and the hockey school. I brought in all the money. Mm-hmm. I couldn't go. They didn't want me to go. Mm-hmm. And they allowed me with interns and everything to build that whole infrastructure. So Miami was happy. The Sabres were happy because they didn't have to pay a full-time salary.
Yeah.
Because they never wanted to pay a full-time salary. And it was not broken. It was working. It was great. Mm-hmm. So I always had my day job. I never worried that if I got fired in the NHL, which everybody does, I had a job. Yeah. I had a gig. I had a career. I had a state pension. Mm-hmm. So I think that made it way easier to do the job as well.
So, again, like you spend so much time with Barry, and it's actually, I've never heard you actually tell that story about how you guys met. I just remember back being a young goalie camper and at Saberland and you announcing you're going to the Predators, and everyone was like, wait, what's going on here? But it like kicked off this amazing journey you've had with Barry. I mean, so much success. And I think if you look back at like all the goalies you've worked with, you know, whether it's Pekka Rinne to Braden Holtby to Sorokin to Mike Dunham to Volkun, like whoever you talk about them, I think I'll say it for you. I think the thing that is really amazing about you is your ability with every single person to figure out a way to get the most out of them, to figure out what's this person's ceiling that they probably haven't even reached yet or they don't know they can reach. And I think also a way you do that is through like these bonds that you form with them. Can you just kind of comment on what your approach is and how you believe like you're able to do that? How are you able to get the most out of these guys where maybe other people couldn't do it?
Well, first, you got to build trust. So it's about relationships. Just like, I mean, you and I have been friends forever, right? And we built a relationship, and our group has a very unique, but the relationships are amazing.
Shout out to the EKHL.
Shout out to the EKHL.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. We build relationships. And so that's where it starts. Mm-hmm. And when you trust somebody or they trust you, the synergy is far greater than if you're trying to force somebody to do what you want them to do.
Right.
So you build trust first and foremost. And obviously, after the Hasek thing, it made it easier, as I alluded to before, because they knew that it could happen. So it could happen to me too, can it?
Yeah.
You know, so you got to build trust. And then I never made anybody play like anybody else. I tried to figure out what you do well, what we need to fix. I think we had a good system of how we believed goalies should play in a macro sense. And then the micro stuff was, what do you do well? What don't you do well? Are you 6'5"? Are you 6 foot? What are you? Are you a good skater? Are you a bad skater? What are you? And then my job was to try to figure it out. But recognize this, not in Buffalo, after Buffalo with Barry Trotz. He made it easy because he coached his teams to give the goalies a chance to be good. Yeah. When I got hired in Washington, and I went on a little retreat with Braden Holtby, and the one thing I told him was that you are going to be good. You're going to be good automatically. When Barry Trotz comes in here and this team, when he coaches this team and with the structure he's going to put in and with the predictability that's going to happen and with the defensive posture that he's going to take, you will be good by accident. It's your job to be great. How can we make you great? You will be good automatically. And I do believe that. It was no accident that Robin Lehner, for example, went to the New York Islanders with a Barry Trotz coach team and won a Masterton Trophy and was a Vezina finalist, coming from a team that they needed beach balls to keep out of the net. Really?
Yeah.
You lived it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's not me. It's the structure that's put in place to give me a chance to do what I do.
Out of all those years and all the goalies you've worked with, is there someone who is the goalie who, I don't necessarily want to say you're most proud of, I don't think that's fair, but essentially the one who you're like, wow, I got way more out of him than I thought I could. And it's, obviously something that I guess, you are proud about. Maybe like going into it, you're like, I didn't think I could do that with him.
Yeah. I'm actually proud of Mo. When people ask me who my favorite goalie was that I coached, I always respond with, do you have a brother and a sister? And they say, yeah, I got 2 brothers. So which one's your dad's favorite? You can't ask that question of a parent.
Yeah.
So it's not a fair question to ask of me.
Yeah.
But when I look back on all the goalies with the success they had and what they did, the 2 guys, the first guy that I'm, for no better term, is most proud of is a guy named Steve Shields.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Shields was, when he left college, the winningest goalie in college hockey history.
Michigan, right?
Michigan, which he got passed by Marty Turco and after that. But Steve Shields had a rude awakening when he turned pro. And nobody ever thought that he would play in the National Hockey League for 10 plus years and have a respectable career and win a playoff series here in Buffalo and a playoff series in San Jose. And I wouldn't have guessed that either. I actually begged Jerry Meehan, who was the GM at the time, not to sign Steve Shields. I begged them not to sign Steve Shields. And it worked out great. So another story, I'm a story guy. John Muckler is now the general manager of the Buffalo Sabres. We're in a lockout. I want to say 94, 95, we had a work stoppage one way or another. I don't remember exactly. It was we started playing in January. Steve Shields is playing for the Rochester Americans. And we're in, and I am not speaking highly of Steve Shields all through training camp to John Muckler. He had a real tough go. He started 0-6, like a 78% save percentage. We finally had to send him to the East Coast League. But before that, I thought I committed job suicide. We're in Adirondack, Detroit's farm team. We got beat 7-3. They scored 7 on 18. John Muckler was there. And I had been vocal about Steve Shields doesn't belong in the American League. And Muckler comes downstairs after the game, and he grabs me. He goes, okay, you were right. I don't want to hear it again. Now fix it. So you can't just fix it. There's no magic drill, magic potion, magic meeting that you can fix it. So I committed what I thought was job suicide. I said to him, I'll fix it when you make Robbie Ray a 30-goal scorer. I thought he was going to hit me. Because what I said was as stupid as what he said. But everybody said that to goalie coaches at that point.
Yeah.
We still say it to goalie coaches at that point. And he looked at me, and then he let out his John Muckler cackle laugh because he realized what he said was as stupid as what I said. And that was, I wouldn't say a turning point in our relationship, but it made our relationship actually way better.
You know, speaking of relationships, I think it's fair to say, like, you take great pride, and not only the relationships you formed with the goalies you've coached, with the people you've worked with at Miami or in the NHL, but also with the relationships you've created, through Korn Camp, which, of course, is the goalie camp you've been running now, I guess, longer than I even realized when you started off as a weekend camp before you ever working for the Sabres, all the way till today. You still do it. Can you talk about what it means to you to go out and do these camps that you continue to do, and like the relationships, the lifelong relationships that have formed amongst campers like us guys in the AKHL, and kind of what that means to you to know that that's happening and you're a part of that, and it wouldn't have happened without you?
I often say that if my doctor came to me, because there was times I was doing 3 full-time jobs, setting up and doing camps all summer, Miami, and NHL. Mm-hmm. If my doctor came to me and said, Mitch, you can't do 3 of these. Mitch, you can't do 2 of these. You pick one, you keep one, that's it. I take the camps.
Why?
I take the camps because they're pure. I take the camps because we have an enormous amount of impact, not only on people that work with us, like you. I hope that we instilled stuff in you that have made you what you are today.
Yep.
We instill stuff in the kids, the life lessons, the demands. I've mellowed, but I still believe and I still hold people accountable. And I just think we do great work. And we do work better than anybody out there on the planet. And we have as much passion as anybody. We've had enormous influences on those that are like yourself or other people that are in hockey now, or we've changed or enhanced or opened people's eyes up and changed people's lives.
Yeah.
They look at the position, they look at work, they look at analyzing way differently when they finish with what we do than when they showed up there. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want on the tombstone. The NHL stuff's great. I pinch myself, as I said, every day. I'm so proud of that. But you know what? I made millionaires. That's great. I made millionaires. The scoreboard's great. Their bank accounts are great. But the camp's pure. The camp, we really changed lives.
What do you think? It's funny, as a former camper, I mean, there's no doubt that when you're in it, there are times when you're like, oh man, this guy's on me, or oh, why is he such a perfectionist? Especially when you are like me, or someone like Tommy sitting on the couch over here, where it's you start to work for you. And maybe at the time you don't totally get it, right? Why is he so demanding, or what's with all this accountability or the discipline, whatever it is, but you start to realize it later in life, and you don't even, whether it's, it's all mixed together. It's what it means to be a goalie, the preparation, the attention to detail, what it means or what it feels like to fail, and then the stuff you instilled in us that I think we carry to this day, or I know we do. But what do you think of all the stuff you're trying to teach people? What are the biggest lessons outside of obviously the goalie stuff?
Yeah, I think it's not worth doing unless you do your best. Mm-hmm. That's one of my mantras. Whether it's mowing the lawn, making your bed, cleaning your room, or doing your job, it's not worth doing unless you do your best. Mm-hmm. Now, your best may not be as good as his best or his best or his best.
Right.
That's okay. We're not comparing you to them. We're comparing you to you. You've got to do your best. That's the first thing. Second thing I talk about all the time is you never know who's watching. Yep. There's people watching you all the time. Whether you're on the ice, whether you're in an office, whatever you're doing, mm-hmm. There's people watching you. And those are 2 mantras I tell people all the time. I also talk about passion, because I don't think you can be the best in the world at anything, or the best you can be at anything, if you don't love what you do.
100%.
I get asked this all the time. What's the greatest skill that a goalie needs? Is it skating? Is it tracking? Is it flexibility? No, it's that he loves to play. Mm-hmm. I had to throw Dominik Hasek off the ice. I had to throw Thomas Vokoun off the ice. I had to throw Pekka Rinne off the ice. I had to Braden Holtby. Braden, that's enough. We play tonight. One more drill. And then I can tell you guys that I had to beg to stay on the ice, begged to come out for goalie ice. And they might have been more talented than some of the names I just mentioned, but they never reached their potential. They were good because they were gifted, but they were never great because they didn't love to play.
That's something we hear on this podcast all the time. It could be like a CEO, it could be a celebrity chef, a pro athlete. Everyone talks about passion because it's like what gets you through the hard times, right?
Well, but
and you got to love what you do.
Yes.
How else are you going to be the best if you don't love it?
When you think about passion, is truly well directed emotion, and emotion takes everything to the next level, right? Everything to the next level, and if it's with your wife, it's love. That's an emotion. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's love for playing our sport or playing our game. But passion takes everything to the next level. And if you're passionless, you may be the most talented guy in the world. You'll never reach your potential.
So all these attributes that we're talking about, being accountable, doing your best, all these different things, where does that come from in you? Is it going back to growing up in the Bronx with your parents, or like how were these things? Obviously, these are things that are instilled in you that you're passing along. Where does it come from?
My dad was a workaholic, like I'm a workaholic.
Popcorn.
Yeah. My dad worked 2 jobs. On the weekend, he made bagels. During the week, he had his job. And then late in his life, he partnered with a guy who had a bagel empire. And he got his own bagel store. No money. We had no money. He had sweat equity. My dad would get up at 11 o'clock at night to go make the bagels. And my dad was a workaholic. And he loved to work. And I guess that's where you learn, right?
Yep.
We learn from our parents
Yep.
in a good way or a bad way. We don't learn everything from our parents.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a chain smoker. He never picked up a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't learn everything from our parents.
Yep.
And I would imagine that some of it in my era was me. Mm-hmm. When I left Miami, when I retired from Miami University, they hired 3 people to replace the job I did.
All right.
Because nobody wanted to work that hard anymore as things have evolved in life. Mm-hmm. You're a boss. Now you're in a unique industry, and you can probably figure out who will go above and beyond, which, by the way, above and beyond is what's expected, not just, thank goodness he went above and beyond. And that's how you hire. Because your industry needs it. Mm-hmm. Well, so does mine.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. So over all these years, there's no question that goaltending has changed dramatically, putting it lightly. Are there certain things, though, that you think have remained constant?
Courage. Now, we still need courage. We needed a lot more courage when you wore the crappy gear you wore. But nobody shot pucks like they shoot pucks now.
Good point.
It is unbelievable. They are not hockey sticks. They are slingshots. You watch in slow motion one of those sticks bend when a guy shoots a puck, and it's a rocket coming off that stick. But courage is really important. You have to have the courage to fail. You have to have the courage to get in there. You have to have the courage to make a save with 26 seconds to go to preserve the victory. It requires ice in your veins. You need a unique mindset to do that. And yet you have to always have a short memory. Mm-hmm. Because if you dwell on something, you don't have the emotional resources to make the next save. So you've got to have the shortest memory on the planet. And those things have never changed, whether it was Terry Sawchuk playing or the guys playing today.
So you mentioned the courage to fail. And that's, again, a common theme that comes up when we're talking to people like yourself, but from different industries about, no one wants to fail, but you're going to fail. And sometimes there's a silver lining, right? You can learn a lot from your failures. Do you have something, whether you call it a failure or something that didn't go well, in your career that maybe you learned the most from?
That's a good question. Let me first go back to failure.
Sure.
Every goal could be perceived a failure, which means on some nights we had 4 failures.
Yeah.
And if you let that be a failure, by game 20, you're going to burn and crash. I have a joke that, I have a lot of one-liners. They mean, it's amazing when you listen to them what they mean. God created goalies to give up goals. We just try to give up as few as we can. Mm-hmm. Because we're going to give up goals. We're not going to get shutouts. It doesn't mean you failed. Let's worry more about the saves you made. Let's learn from the goals you gave up. We fail all the time. I have 1 Stanley Cup. I've been at it 35 years. I failed 34 times.
Wow. Yeah.
Only one team can win.
Mm-hmm.
And every year you rebuild and you think about, okay, how are we going to change? How is the game changing? And I remember when we started the shootouts and, the game's always changing. What is, and it's a copycat league. So, so every year, during the year, in season, you're always assessing. You're always watching. You're looking for trends. What's working now? What's not working? Why are like right now, the NHL has the goalies have the lowest save percentage and the highest goals against in years. So if we have a 3.01 goals against average now, if we measure it against the last 15 years, we stink. Mm-hmm. But if we measure it against today's standard, we don't.
Yeah.
So you got to have an open mind also.
For sure. So, obviously there's times leading up to when you won the Stanley Cup where you guys got close. And what motivates you to like you said, like kind of restart, reassess, keep going every year and not get kind of like exhausted, get gassed out and like give up? I mean, what motivates you to keep going?
Well, first of all, I love what I do. Okay. For most people, hockey or a sport is their hobby. How awesome is it that my hobby is my livelihood?
Yeah.
My goodness. Holy crap, am I lucky. So I love it. And second, my obligation is the relationships I created. I have to make you better. Mm-hmm. I have to help you it's a partnership.
Right.
But I have to help you get better. Mm-hmm. It's not about me. It's about helping you get better. So those two things, we're always rebooting every year and maybe sometimes during the year. We're always rebooting. And there's not another thing on this planet I'd want to be doing. So I don't need that motivation. Once again, if you love it, it's not work. And if you love it, you hope to get to your height.
And I mean, you got to your height. And, speaking of reaching the height, you won a Stanley Cup.
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, I have never measured success by the scoreboard. I never, ever expected to win the Stanley Cup. I never even really aspired to win the Stanley Cup. I've told people this. My job was to make Dominik Hasek better. My job was to take a draft choice, our first expansion guy, Thomas Foucault, and get him to the National Hockey League. Mm-hmm. We just drafted Jack Ivankovic. My job is now to get him to the National Hockey League. I measure it. I've always measured success by the success of the individuals that I have had an opportunity to interact with, which includes you guys, mm-hmm. And all your era and guys after you in the AKHL. We'll give them a shout out, and their era. And I get emails from parents all the time. Oh, my kid won the championship. They send me a picture and he was in camp last summer. And that's awesome. That warms my heart. That's why I'm in it. When I got handed the Stanley Cup out on the ice that day, I panicked. I panicked because I never rehearsed it. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I didn't know. I never took a moment to think about, well, when I get the cup, here's what I'm going to do. And thank goodness I had Trags, because Trags helped me figure out what we were going to do on the day with the cup.
Yeah.
I never fantasized about those things. That wasn't in my DNA. My DNA level of what I believe success had nothing to do with a championship.
Yeah, it's actually interesting to hear you say that, but I appreciate you being honest about it, but I know everybody in your circle was super happy for you when you did that.
I know, and I appreciate that from everybody. It was very cool.
So to kind of like close things out, sometimes we do like a little rapid fire, but I just got a couple like random questions. Some of these questions I ask everybody. I'm just curious. So I got to kind of rephrase one of them. So like taking yourself back to the 90s when you were in Buffalo a lot, what was your favorite restaurant?
Connor's in West Seneca.
Is that still around? Do we know?
Yep, it's still there.
Yeah.
But Bob, who owned it, has passed. His son is running it now. For me, it had the best wings, best beef on weck, which are Buffalo staples. Mm-hmm. Because you got to have wings when you're here.
Yep.
You got to have beef on weck when you're here. And a close second is Chef's.
Yep.
Because you got to have spaghetti parm when you're here.
Yep. And that's why we're running this out so we can get over there. All right. So what's one daily habit? It's a quick answer. One daily habit that you can't get rid of. It just helps you out every day.
Helps me out every day?
Something you do.
I try to get in the gym, especially at my age and my weight. I need to get in the gym. But maybe it's reading the daily notes. Okay. Because I got to stay up on what's going on. Who won last night? Who played last night? Mm-hmm. Which goalie played? I'm doing that first thing in the morning. I get all the notes that come electronically. I don't have enough time to read everything, but I try the best I can every day to do that.
All right, and last question is something I ask everybody. What's maybe something that most people wouldn't know about you that maybe they'd find interesting if they knew it?
I have an MBA.
In what?
In marketing.
I didn't even know that.
I have an MBA in marketing.
Wow.
I was a graduate assistant at Kent State. I started my MBA. I was a GA for the business department. I started coaching hockey there, and I went to Miami and I finished my MBA. That MBA is part of the reason we were able to build what we built at Miami in terms of programs and marketing. And I wasn't a hockey dope. I had business knowledge. I back in high school, I did all the high school printing long before computers. Long before computers, when you had to do paste ups and you had triangles and T-squares and you made flyers, handmade flyers. I did that stuff at Miami, promoting the things that we were doing, got them all over campus. Nobody was doing that. That was my marketing knowledge, what I learned, and the graphic design stuff. Those two things, I believe, helped us build what we built there.
Awesome. All right. Do you want to go to Chef's?
I do.
Thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.